Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. In this video today, I am giving you guys a new build because in the patch that we are currently living in today, S9 Riven has just been changed into a very new item, and this new item has been nerfed to the ground. The difference between both of the items now is that the new item for the S9 Riven is now worth 400 more gold, and also instead of actually giving 75 AD, the new item is now giving about 60 AD. You do get an extra 250 health, but this is not worth it because you never bought this item for tankiness, you actually bought this item to burst. And not only is the stats much worse, but the build path is so bad. If you build this item as the first item in the game, it just doesn't feel good. And even if you build this item as the third item or the fourth item, it still feels very bad. So I have come up with a very big solution, which basically means a new item build. In order to get a very similar result like the S9 Riven, you want to build and rush Ghostblade as soon as possible. The build path of the Ghostblade is even better than the old S9 Riven. The damage you get from the Ghostblade is also very similar to the damage that you would get if you would buy the old S9 Riven. And most importantly, Ghostblade is just as gold efficient as the old S9 Riven was. The only downside effect from the Ghostblade is that this item does not have the 20% CDR. But this is no problem at all because if you go into the bonus stats, you can actually take the scaling CDR. This should be enough for the CDR that you have been missing from this item. Another downside effect is that you no longer have the Essence Flare, but the real reason why we bought S9 Riven in the first place is because this item was just way too gold efficient. It gave way too much attack damage for the price that it had. And since it gave about 20% CDR and it also had a very great build path, this is why this item has become so overpowered. And Essence Flare was just a little extra, but this was not specifically the reason why people bought it in the first place. Anyway, after building Ghostblade, there's two directions that you can go for. The first item build is to go for the default item build. In this item build, we've got the Black Cleaver, which is still a very solid item. Similar to the S9 Riven, you need to get 20% CDR elsewhere, and the Black Cleaver also allows you to go for the Ninja Tabi or the Mercs. And the last two items of this item build completely depends on the situation of the game. Guardian's Angel is always a very good item for the late game, and Starrick's Gauge is a very good item against champions that can one-shot you. However, if the enemy team doesn't really have one-shot and they have full tanks, you might want to consider swapping the Starrick's Gauge with a Last Whisper instead. So the second direction that you can go for after building the Ghostblade is to go into the direction of the Death Stance instead of Black Cleaver. You will have to get the Lucidity boots in order to get the 40% CDR. However, this build will give you a lot more damage and it will give you more space to snowball. After the Lucidity boots, you can actually go and build Starrick's Gauge. This item will help you a lot with the tankiness that you have been missing, and once again, if the enemy team has a lot of one-shot, then this item is honestly perfect for you. After the Starrick's Gauge, it completely depends once again on the situation of the game. Guardian's Angel is always a very good item, and Last Whisper is always a very good choice too, but you could also swap the Last Whisper with an Hydra if the enemy team doesn't really have that many tanks. Now as for the runes, you still want to use the exact same runes that you have used in the past, which means that you want to go for Conqueror and then choose between Inspiration, Resolve or Sorcery. However, there's actually one thing that will change, and that is the bonus stats. Since we are rushing Ghostblade, we always want to make sure that we get the CDR scaling, and then you want to take 1 point in the offensive stats, and as for the last point, you want to go for health, armor or magic resist depending on the matchup that you are playing against. So now that we covered the best build for Riven for in the current patch today, there is still one question that remains. Do you ever need to buy the Spear of Shojin? You should only buy this item if you are ahead by at least 5 kills. If you don't really have those skills, then I don't recommend you buying this item at all. Anyway, with that all being said, there's a couple of things that I want to be talking about in the patch notes. Let's get right into them. So here we are in the patch 9.3 notes where the S9 Riven got changed and everything, and I actually found something very interesting which I think a lot of the people should know about. Let's actually scroll down all the way to the items, and here we are with the last Whisper change. Basically, they are changing the price from 1300 gold to 1450 gold, and they are changing the attack damage from 10 to 20, and also changing the armor penetration from 10% to 20%. Now, back in the day, before this change was actually there, 1300 gold and getting only 10 AD and only 10% total armor penetration is not really that much. But now, for only 150 more gold, so 1450, getting 20 AD and 20% total armor penetration is actually very huge. Especially if you are playing against tanks and you want to get Last Whisper as the third item. So basically, if the enemy team has a lot of tanks, you don't necessarily need to finish Last Whisper as soon as possible because it's already giving 20% total armor penetration. You can literally just buy Last Whisper against tanks and then just finish another item instead. Now, of course, if you do finish the Last Whisper into the Mortal Reminder or the Lord Dominic's Regards, you will still get another slight buff, which is 5 AD. I think that this is definitely becoming a very good item right now. So the next change I want to talk about is the Akali change. So there has been a lot of frustration when doing the Riven against Akali matchup. Basically, all you had to do in that matchup was to bait her Shroud, and then you should be able to do an all-in. But the thing is, if you don't get to bait out her W, it's really hard to do the matchup because every time you go and trade Akali, she had a very good sustain on her Q, which most likely, most of the times, she would sustain it back if you did a very good trade. But now they are actually buffing the health regen and they completely removed the sustain from the Q, which is huge because health regen is not gonna get that sustain that she once had with the Q. So basically, this will open up for a lot more opportunities, because you can now trade her and she won't be able to sustain it back all the way. Also, the Shroud will no longer prevent turrets from revealing Akali, so that basically means that whenever she uses the Shroud, you can simply see her when standing under the tower. She won't really be able to dive you anymore, so that's a very good thing. And her Shroud is also being nerfed completely in the late game. So I don't really think that people are going to play Akali anymore, which in my opinion I like that because I never enjoyed playing against Akali anyway. But if you do happen to play against Akali as the Riven player, I don't really think it's going to be that difficult to play against Akali anymore, because those nerfs that she just got right now is very huge. The last final change I want to talk about is the Atrix change. Similar to the Akali change, a lot of people had the frustration with the Riven against Atrix matchup. The thing is, in this patch, Atrix is getting a huge nerf on his sustain. He does get a health regen buff, but he no longer heals to creeps on his E. He also doesn't store any charges anymore, so with this change, you should be able to trade him a lot more and he won't be able to sustain as much as he did before. Similar to the Akali change, this will open up a lot more opportunities to win lane very early on. I think the matchup will be a lot more easy now. I haven't played against him yet, but we'll soon find out and see how it's like. Anyways guys, this was it for the video. Tell me what you guys think about the S9 Riven change. Do you like it, or do you think it's very bad, or do you think it's something needs to be changed again? In my opinion, this item was way too overpowered and it had to have some nerfs, but they should have kept the item the way that it is. This item was meant to be a burst item. I don't see the reason why you would swap some of the attack damage so that you can get more health on this item. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. So thank you so much for watching this video guys. Don't forget to follow my stream if you want to see high elo gameplay. And if you want to be a part of an amazing community, don't forget to join my Discord server. And I guess I'll see you guys in my next video and my next stream, man. Peace.